time.
Copy the countdown, control. The liquid hydrogen vent valve has been closed and flight pressurization is underway.
To Geek Time.
Mark and counting.
If you know how to give the Vulcan hand sign, if you've never kissed a girl or tasted wine, if you write all your papers in Linux, then you know it's Geek Time. If you still live with your parents and you're 38 years old, you got a pocket protector and you blog about having a cold. It's Geek Time. Can't wait to get an iPad. It's Geek Time. You're like Ogle and Superbad. It's Geek Time. You got a coffee mug warmer and an Iron Man mask. It's Geek Time. You dress up and go to Comic-Con. It's Geek Time. You know all the lines from Wrath of Khan. It's Geek Time. You like asteroids and shiny droids and iPhones. It's Geek Time. Time to get a life. It's Geek Time. You will never get a wife. It's Geek Time.
The next generation.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Welcome to Geek Time, the next generation. Hosted by Chris Boers.
Don't cross the stream.
Make it so.
And Scott Erkman.
Never tell me the odds.
Bringing you all things geek-worthy from the world of pop culture.
Get to the chopper!
All right, welcome to another episode of Geek Time, Season 1, Episode 10. And we are back in the saddle for another Geek Time. We're doing a roundup for all things Toy Fair. And today, boy, we got a full slate. I pulled a clip from Jon Favreau from the archives that we're going to listen to, and it's going to make sense a little later. And we also got short interviews with Orange Cassidy, as well as the great Todd McFarlane. And joining me with this episode, no, not Tim, it is Scotty from last episode. He was with me at Toy Fair, so I thought, heck, let's bring him back so we can talk all things Toy Fair and kind of round up everything we saw and did at the Toy Fair.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Thanks. We still got a lot of stuff we didn't cover on the last one, and this one we could probably hopefully wrap it up.
Oh yeah, we did the episode on the second day, so we had a bunch of stuff left to kind of talk about that we didn't get to.
Yeah, things we hadn't seen yet, things we just forgot to bring up. There's plenty that we're going to cover.
All right, so the first things we like to do is geeking, freaking out. And one of the things I do want to geek out on is over the last couple of weeks, I've been interviewing some amazing guests. Like the guest list for the show coming up is amazing. So I don't want to spill any of the beans, but like Todd McFarlane, like I got to sit down with him, got to sit down with the guy that does the Icons Unearthed series. Like these are major gets, especially for a show like this. And Scotty and myself, we used to love this podcast, the Gilbert Gottfried podcast. And I remember one of the things he always said was everybody he wanted to interview was pretty much dead. If you remember that trope that he always did.
Yeah. He, just about every episode, him and Frank Santopadre had mentioned that.
And it's funny because the last couple of weeks, I've been looking for guests and trying to get guests to come on the show. And I keep running into the same problem. I keep going into like the list of voice actors and things like that. And I'm like, wow, I wonder what this guy's up to. Oh, he's dead. It's like this recurring theme. Like, oh man. So I just like many of the people that I would love to sit down and interview, they've passed away.
And it's so weird to think about because, yeah, we were kids and we were, super young, but you're thinking they were only probably 30, 40 years old. And now they've already passed away. But that just shows, that we've caught up with them now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was thinking too, like Cesar Romero. Wouldn't that be a cool guy to like sit down and
that would be unbelievable.
Joker laugh and all that good stuff.
Burgess Meredith, he could cover everything from Rocky to the old Batman show.
Get the whole A-Team cast to come on. Oh,
Is
man.
Mr. T still around? He might be a get. We could probably get him.
Maybe we'll get the cast of Wings as a backup ancillary.
Come on, Steven Weber. We're here for you.
All right. Do you have any anything you're geeking out over there, Scott?
I do. The big thing that's got me right now is they just put out the trailer for season 2 of The Last of Us on HBO Max, I guess they're calling it. I've played both the games, and the first season was great. And there were a couple of nuggets in there that that they drop, and I'm like, oh boy, I know where they're going with it, because I've been really closely following the game. Not exactly, so there's still surprises go on, but if you watch the trailer, it's going to be a pretty exciting season 2.
Enough said.
So I guess we'll get into Toy Fair here, because a lot of stuff went down at Toy Fair that we didn't talk about. One of the first things I want to talk about is the Hasbro booth. And Scott, you remember just when we went there, boy, that place was crowded.
Yeah, there was tons of people there. That was a good vibe when we got to that booth.
But I tell you, like, if you wanted to talk to anybody in the Hasbro booth when we showed up for the initial Hasbro tour, good luck. It was like all the top nerds and geeks in the industry, and they were all, I don't know the right word.
They just monopolized the time with the reps. They wouldn't let anybody else get in there.
Yeah, they were like filibustering the guys that I wanted to talk to, especially the Star Wars guy. Like over at the Star Wars section, they had the guy on hand that is one of the creative guys. He works on the figures and the selection process of characters they pick. And I wanted to talk to him, like, just for 5 minutes, like, not even that. I don't care. But this guy that ran up to that booth, so I was just kind of hovering, and I was in and out, kind of seeing where he was at in the conversation. And he monopolized the entire time. Like, I think he was there 15, 20 minutes. And
again, like, that's just, there's other people. And yeah, that's your shot, but you have to keep it brief, because there's other people that do want to talk to these people.
Well, what drove me nuts is I was going through my pictures later, and I accidentally caught a screenshot of his phone. And he had like this notepad app open on his phone, and it was just, if you zoom in on it, it was question after question after question that he wanted to ask him. I'm like, what the hell is this for? Like, and the picture quality was so good on my camera that I could see all the questions that he was asking. They were the dumbest things you'd ever heard. I'm just like, okay, do you really want to sit there for 20 minutes and ask these mundane questions? Like, they weren't even good questions. It's like, if you go to like a Star Wars convention and they're like, okay, in minute 12 of this scene, what like, can you explain what happened when you accidentally moved your hand just a little bit to this way? It's like, oh my God.
It was the Saturday Night Live skit that was it was Star Trek, and William Shatner was part of it. It was that kind of thing where they were just doing that ridiculous.
And the kicker to this was that I was like, okay, well, we have a meeting with Hasbro the next day. I'll just ask my questions then. So went back the following day, and of course they're like, oh yeah, that guy left. He was only there for the Hasbro presentation for the fans. And I was like, he was only there for an hour. Like, you flew him in for an hour and then he was gone?
Right, and the guy they had at the booth, he still was knowledgeable, but didn't have as much knowledge. See, that guy would have been perfect for the other one that monopolized it, because he had all the mundane questions. The person with the lesser knowledge could have answered all of those.
Oh, that's a good observation. Yeah, because the guy that I ended up interviewing for the show, there was one question that I asked where I was like, okay, when you guys did the Kickstarter campaign, you didn't reach the last goal. Like, what happens to that figure that aren't able to get? Does he pop up on the roster somewhere later? Like, these are the things I need to know. I want that figure.
Yeah, like you said, the guy was there an hour, and that guy easily took up half of his time being there.
Yeah, and it was funny too, because they have Magic the Gathering, and Tim, he's a big Magic the Gathering fan, so they had all the new stuff that they just announced on display. So I was taking pictures with them, and I sent those pictures to Tim, and I was expecting, oh my God, you're with them, and blah blah blah. And the response he gave me was, I saw him announced this morning. I'm like, well, I'm standing next to him. Like, you're not more jazzed about this? So that's what I guess that's my freak out for the week. Like, Tim wasn't more excited about that.
It's the people that got there early already posted their stuff and ruined the surprise for everybody.
What up with that?
So another thing I want to talk about that happened at Toy Fair was the Jazzwares booth. And Scott, I know you really enjoyed what went on there, because this, again, another media press event that they brought in all these people for, because they have the license to make AEW figures. It was funny because they had this closed door, and we're like, oh, I guarantee it's one of the wrestlers. So the door opened, and half the people in the audience were like, who's that?
I know, I'm sitting there going, that's Orange Cassidy. That's Orange Cassidy. And sure enough, yeah, they had released a special new figure of Orange Cassidy, and there he was.
And here's the funny part, because I don't watch AEW that often. I drift in and out. So I turned to Scott because I want to interview the guy. And I turned to Scott. I'm like, hey, who is that? And you say Orange Cassidy, but there's so much jibber jabbering that's going on, for some reason I hear Lawrence Cassidy. So I'm like, oh, Lawrence Cassidy, okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of background because it was that private event, so there was a lot of stuff going on in there. So
I went up to him. I don't know if I called him Lawrence or not, because I mean, you hear Orange, and I don't know. You kind of try to make a guy's name out of it, so that's how I put that together. I go up to I can't remember if I called him Lawrence Cassidy or not, but I'm like, oh, I just thinking back because you didn't tell me until after I did the interview. I'm like, oh yeah, I can't believe I talked to Lawrence Cassidy. And you're like, Lawrence Cassidy? Who's Lawrence Cassidy?
I was like, oh boy. I was like, wow, I wish I would have talked to him. It sounds great.
So that's the thing. So I ended up getting a small interview for him, which we'll play here in a second. But let's just play the clip here.
Yeah, how's it feel to have an action figure of yourself now?
I mean, this is like the third one, and every single time they're like so different and unique, and I don't know how they keep thinking of cool things for me, because at some point I'm going to be like, all right, maybe this one's not, I don't like it. No, but I like them all, and they're great. So I don't know how they're going to top themselves on this one.
How'd you come up with such a cool gimmick?
I didn't. I just lived my life, and because we all there are some days we all don't want to get up and go to work, right?
Yeah. Of course. I just love how the wrestlers just take a beating from you for such a.
Yeah, I mean, hey, all I have to do is punch him in the face and win, right? Wrestling's not that hard, so.
Do you hope to be champion one day?
Sure. I hope to be champion all the time.
Nice. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you, buddy.
So as you can tell, it's a very, very short clip because I didn't know what else to ask. And of course, in hindsight, I'm like, you know what I should have done is I should have had both because I have two microphones. I should have gave a microphone to Scotty and let him jump in with questions too. We could go back and forth. But this, of course, are things you only see or think about in the hindsight of these situations.
It's something that we can, we'll pick up on the next time we see somebody that one of us isn't aware of.
So as far as the rest of the media event went over at Jazzwares, what a great time because they ended up giving out swag bags to everybody. And what they gave away just blew me away. As we were walking out, they're handing everybody these two huge gift bags. And Scotty and I just looked at each other like, what is going on here? What are in these bags?
Yeah, I can't believe we got two of them. I thought I had one for you and I, but no, those are yours. It was.
Yeah, so we got back to the hotel room, started opening them up. And Jazzwares has this program called the Vault. And it's this program where you can only get special items. Well, these were Vault items, which I don't even know if they're open to the public. I looked them up on eBay, couldn't find them. But what we ended up getting was they have a micro versions of the vehicles in Star Wars. And you not only got one ship, but you got a whole fleet of ships. It was like the whole Battle of Yavin crew, like all 5 X-Wings. And then the other box was 5 TIE fighters, so you could just have this battle if you wanted.
Yeah, it was good. Like that set of X-Wings, it was the whole Red Squadron. And on the back, each one had a different astromech with it. And I actually took mine out, and the pilots actually come out of the seats and everything. They're really detailed.
Yeah, so I have to say kudos to Jazzwares. You guys, phenomenal. Because you go to the other booths, and they just give away these little knickknacks, and you're like, oh, that's great, and you just throw them away. But this, like, I looked up on eBay, like, these things were going for $150 each. Like, these were just nothing to sneeze at. These were high quality toys that they were giving away to the media there.
Definitely. Yeah, this was one of the better gifts that we had gotten this year. And we've been there a lot of times, but this is one of the best ones we've ever gotten from any of the places.
Yeah, and in that same vein, I have to say, shame on you, Mattel.
You dick!
Every year, they usually give us a gift bag, but not this year. I don't know what's going on over at Mattel. Like, I think their company is in big trouble because even when we went there, they didn't have anything really good on display. It was just the same old stuff that you see year after year. Like, they've got the Minecraft movie that they're trying to push, but that's it. Like, besides that, with the Hot Wheels stuff, they're pushing the race cars. What are those? The
F1 series cars.
F1 Formula car. Yeah, yes, thank you. Like, besides that, they're just relying on IPs.
The same IPs, and they're just refreshing that IP every season. There's nothing new or exciting.
Yeah, I think they're in trouble because now, like, one of the big things was that they unveiled was they're doing this collaboration with Hasbro, with their with Play-Doh. Like, Hasbro has Play-Doh, they have Barbie, and they're doing Play-Doh dresses for Barbie. Like, a cool concept, but again, it's like, are you trying to foreshadowing your demise here? Like, what is going on? Drop the ball.
Yeah, this year it was a letdown.
But another company that I thought was amazing was the people that handle the Lorcana IP that are, if you guys don't know what that is, it's kind of like Magic the Gathering cards, but with Disney characters. So it's the Disney trading game, and I think it's Ravensburger. Is that?
They're huge. I mean, I'm down here in Florida. I'm near the parks all the time, and there are lines of people wanting to get a hold of these cards and packs of them.
Yeah, and I got to say, they couldn't have been nicer. Like, now they are on my radar for the first time this year because I was like, oh, I want to see what these guys are all about, and they rolled out the red carpet for us. I just couldn't believe how gracious they were. And I will say right now, I will be the perfect corporate shill for Lorcana. So send me anything you want. I am there. And I will say that they did something that was totally unexpected. Like, if you went to their booth and were interested in that IP, they gave you an exclusive Lorcana card, which was Anna from Frozen. Now, this card, very cool, because I've been to E3, I've been to other things where Magic the Gathering has had events. They don't give you an exclusive card to media people, which it's like I feel the ball dropped on that one. And to further illustrate like how cool this is, like, I ended up looking up this card on eBay. There's only one card on there, and it's listed for $250. Like, that's an amazing exclusive to have.
I didn't realize it was going for that much, so that actually is going to get some competition to those Star Wars toys that we had gotten. Also, again, I'm keeping this stuff because I'm blown away that we get these things, and I love looking at it. And I took it out of the sleeve, and the card's just high quality. It looks fantastic.
Oh my!
But yeah, beautiful card and amazing card. And I like one section of the booth. They actually had their I don't know if it was the most expensive cards that they had on display, but that was amazing. It was just like a whole wall of Lorcana cards that were super rare.
They're rare cards, yeah, and there were a lot of them too. There was a lot more than you would think, but that's how you get people to grab those packs.
I'm just curious how much in stock they had just on that single wall, because man, there must have been like thousands and thousands of dollars just in one place.
Card was $250. Yeah, that had to be a good chunk of change sitting on that wall.
Lock down the security. It's a trap. So, Scotty, I'm curious, what was your most memorable booth of the evening?
I think it was Jazzwares. They just had so much stuff. Again, the AEW property, the Star Wars stuff that they had, and a helmet that we really couldn't take pictures or talk about, so I won't. It's a character that hadn't been released yet. It was a full helmet for adults to wear. That blew my mind.
Oh, what was that? What helmet was that?
It was Darth Revan. And again, even the stuff they had for five.
Spoiler alert.
I gotta throw that in there.
Nice. Even the stuff they had for FNAF is just going to be ridiculously popular.
Oh yeah, the Five Nights at Freddy's stuff. Yeah, we kind of got the exclusive on that. That's amazing. That's with the Jazzwares because they're linked in with the movie. The movie's coming. Got an interview with that guy. I'll be dropping that soon. Closer to the movie, I think I'll do that. But I will say, like, personally, I thought the NECA booth really stole the show. The stuff they had on display, like they're doing Sesame Street, crowd pleaser. They did a bunch of Ninja Turtle stuff, another crowd pleaser, and they just do all these niche type IPs, like with like you were gravitating to the Universal monsters and things like that. Like, I'm not really a big fan of your Universal monsters, but they not only had figures, but they had like display pieces, like the whole diorama go. And just it looked like it was right out of the film with all the shading and that they did with the art.
And like you said, that's part of their success is because they have all these little niche things. They cater to a lot of different fan bases. They don't just try to stick to 2 or 3 fan bases. They open up to so many things that they're going to draw in all these people.
Hey, Moose, Rocco, help the judge find his checkbook, will you?
Yeah, get out the checkbook because you're going to be spending a lot of money this year. Especially, a lot of people have commented too with the last episode we did, the basic fun booth where they had the arcades. I will say that we were not allowed to take pictures of anything that was on display, but they do look like the next iteration of what Arcade 1-Up gave us. And people were like, well, can you describe some of what they look like? Look, I think they didn't want anybody to take pictures because I think just for display purposes, I believe they took the actual Arcade 1-Up consoles and just put their games on it just for the people that do the buying and selling for retail.
Right.
So I don't think they wanted pictures out there because, they used the same exact
cabinet.
Arcade. Yeah, cabinets, yes, because they had the same buttons, the same on-off switch. So I think they're going to tweak that the closer to the time comes. But, there are no pictures for that. All right, well, the time's got us for this segment. When we come back and return, we're going to be pulling a clip from an old Geek Time episode from Jon Favreau, and it'll make sense in a few minutes.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Geek Time continues transmitting next with
Jon Favreau.
All right, if you're looking for the latest and greatest in tabletop miniatures, WizKids has you covered, especially when it comes to D&D. I've been loving what they have been doing with the whole scene over there lately. Last year, they did the D&D 50th anniversary sets, which, man, I tell you what, they sent me a brick, and I was looking up the prices of some of these characters. I had like 5 or 6 characters worth like $100 each. I was geeking out over that. I'm like, holy cow. Yeah, now they have a new set. They're going back to Baldur's Gate, and wow. Miniatures, they've got a board game coming out called Builders of Baldur's Gate, and when I was a kid, boy, that was like the big deal. That was the big thing on the NES console there. Yeah, they had Dungeons and Dragons Baldur's Gate. It was just the big campaign that they were running at the time. As far as the miniatures go, WizKids is just knocking it out of the park when it's coming to D&D. The figures are amazing looking and don't want to miss it. So check it out, WizKids.com, or check it out at your local hobby shop. I gotta say, I love New Wave Toys because they have a whole line of mini arcade games that they've been doing. And now they sent me this, if you remember Zoltar, it was that thing in the movie Big that turned Tom Hanks into a little kid. It was that Mystic Swami. Well, they actually made a micro version to fit in the same scale of all their arcade machines that they do. And this thing, it works and talks just like the original. Like if you press a button here.
I am Zoltar, the great gypsy, and I can see your fortune.
It's awesome. It's got like different phrases. It moves. It lights up just like the original Zoltar. Like,
for a small fee, Zoltar will give you a wealth of wisdom.
I'm not sure where you pick this thing up at. Probably at the newwavetoys.com. If you're into these amusement park type miniature scale model things that they're doing, this needs to be in your collection.
Come on over and let Zoltar be sharing with you your fortune.
This is Raphael of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That is the OG Raphael of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You are listening to Geek Time, Turtle Power.
All right, guys, welcome back to Geek Time, Season 1, Episode 10. And bringing us back is, yes, the iconic Rob Paulson, which does like a billion voices out there. And what a great guy for doing that intro. I can't wait to... I need to sit down with this guy and actually talk with him. I think that'd be a great interview.
Yeah, he's the voice of pretty much our childhood. He's done so many things. He's still doing voices today. So even like he's just voices of multiple generations.
Oh, yeah, like Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs. Gosh, just throw a dart in the 90s and you'll hit one of his characters.
It's going to be a character, absolutely, definitely. That's the guy.
But, so for this segment, I wanted to talk about Jon Favreau because in the Newts, we're not really getting to the news notes just yet, but one of the major things that I wanted to bring up is Jon Favreau has been picked to do a new project for Disney Plus, and it's revitalizing Oswald the Rabbit, which was the first character that Walt Disney created before Mickey the Mouse. Or, oh God, Mickey, that's how Pete says it. Mickey the Mouse.
Mickey the Mouse.
But yeah, Mickey Mouse. But yeah, it's kind of cool too, because the Disney parks, whenever I go, they don't usually have a lot of merch with Oswald on it. But whenever I see something sporting that character, I'm like, ooh, I might want to get that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, they want to bring in more current stuff because the kids are the ones that like, oh, I know this IP, I know that, I know Moana, I know Cars, but they still got to come up with stuff there for the parents too that want to get stuff. Or the Disney adults as they're walking around, they're going to want that stuff from the 90s. They're going to want Powerline. They're going to want Oswald.
Yeah, and I confess, I didn't really know who Oswald was really before. What was that Disney game? It was like Epic Mickey.
Yeah, that's the one where you were with the brush and drawing on it.
Yeah, because we went to an E3, I think it was like 2011 or 10 or something like that. Yeah, if you go to the Disney parks, you can get the Mickey Mouse hat with the iconic Mickey ears on it. Well, if you went to the Square booth, or no, that was a Disney game. If you went to the Disney booth at E3, they had the same style of hat, but instead of Mickey Mouse ears, you got the long floppy ears like Oswald had. And I remember, like, after that E3, I looked on eBay to see how much those hats were going for. They were going for like $200-300. And that was on the low end. I was like, boy, we missed the boat on that one, Scott.
Yeah, no kidding. That one I probably would have put on there.
But yeah, it's kind of cool seeing that Jon Favreau is back doing another great IP for Disney, because they're I guess they're rebooting it, kind of showing, where this character came from and doing a new cartoon featuring that lost character.
And see, I'm happy about this too, because the things that he's done with Star Wars, like he's been part of that group that brought Luke Skywalker onto The Mandalorian. So he's really pulling in the things that Oswald and seeing Luke Skywalker, he has that nostalgia. He's of that age group that wants to see these things back on TV.
Right. So now I went back into the Geek Time archives, because back in 2010, I believe it was, Geek Time had Jon Favreau on it. And even back then, Disney kind of opened their doors to Jon because they wanted to do a movie with him. Specifically, they wanted to do a movie very close to A Night at the Museum, but they wanted to do it in the flavor of Magic Kingdom. They wanted the same kind of plot to go on. So I wanted to bring back this interview, because when I heard this, Oswald the Rabbit, he was picked to do that. This is the first thing I thought of, like, wow, he's going back to the well of Disney. And this movie, which I don't know what happened to this movie. It just, he like, it sounded like an awesome concept. Like a family is stuck in the park after hours and all these Disney IPs start coming to life. Like, that would have been a really cool movie. And I guess it got caught up in development hell and it never happened.
There's always studios, and I get it's a business, but these studios, when they have a great idea, and they were going to piggyback, like you said, off of Night at the Museum, which was a huge hit. Those loyal Disney people, they would have eaten that up and went crazy for. I would have went crazy for it. I like Disney. I would have had a great time watching that kind of movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just, Jon Favreau would have did all these nods, like in this interview too. You'll hear him talk about Fantasia and all these old IPs that I would just love to see. So without further ado, here is Jon Favreau from the Vaults of Geek Time from 2010.
Hotline transmitting via cellular technology.
And now joining us on Geek Time, the great Jon Favreau.
Yeah, and it's good that you get to have this show for people who who specifically like what we're into, because then you could talk a little bit more to that audience. You don't have to make it general. Whereas when I do normal, like late night talk shows or something, you kind of got to give the anecdotes from the set. This is fun because you get to talk about the inside baseball stuff, and it's sort of been hinted at, but I'm doing Magic Kingdom, which is essentially a family caught in Disneyland with all of the bringing all the attractions to life.
Oh wow!
Having Disney to just like give me the keys to the kingdom and allow me to I'm supposed to meet with the Imagineers and stuff, and I really want to plumb the depths of what the history of the park is, because it's a place I love to go, a few times a year.
Wow, that's going to be cool.
And yeah,
I can't speak right now. I'm serious. I'm like, that's so awesome to have that. I mean, Disney's that whole place of the imagination and this and that. I mean, I've taken my kids plenty of times, but here, John, here's the keys to the kingdom.
It's like, use whatever you want here, because they, and the new, if you see the new regime over there running, and you see what they've done and with what they had done with Pirates, they're looking to bring interesting filmmakers with an interesting take to attack their historical material and bring some new life to it, new energy,
and not make it so childlike.
And people who embrace it and maybe bring, in my generation of filmmaker, we love that stuff. I mean, we're not rejecting the fun big movies, but you have to do them right, and you have to do them in a way that you would want to see it. You don't want to pander. And if so far so good. I mean, they've been nothing but supportive, Disney, with this thing. And I'm supposed to go in, and I've heard of Imagineering. I've never got to actually talk to any of those guys, but now I just got the phone call that they're inviting me in to look at the archives and meet with their people. So, I mean, this could really be a fun, exciting thing. And again, people don't know what to expect. Is it going to be a mashup of all the other Disney movies? Is it going to be like what they're doing with Avengers? Or is it going to be like a Night at the Museum? What's the tone going to be?
Right. It could be anything at this point, right? I mean, and you've got the Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, that's that could even, maybe Johnny Depp shows up. Who knows, right?
Yeah. So so my thing is, what are the rules? And I think that there's a fun, nostalgic look that would be fun for the adults. Like we did with Iron Man 2 with the Stark Expo and with the World's Fair with the Flushing Meadow Park thing, and we started to scratch the surface of that in that one. And I think there's a fun nostalgia to it that that with Elf 2, there was like a nostalgia for the Rankin Bass Christmas specials.
Right.
And I think with Disneyland, there's something that I could do for the grown-ups. And then for the kids, you make it this fun, dreamlike experience. So, I don't think it's going to be mixing all of the other movies. I think it's going to be its own thing. And I don't think it'll be like Night at the Museum. I think I want to make it a little bit spookier like the old Disney movies were and try to really capture that tone. So that's something I'm really excited about. We're talking about what we could do if this thing works out well, which so far so good.
Getting back to the Disney thing, I love what you're saying about, because when I think Disney, I think classic. And when you really go back, those original Disney movies, Fantasia, and all, they're really scary.
Yeah,
they're dark.
Fantasia last night.
You watched what?
They sent me, I said, look, I got to look at every Disney property. So from Steamboat Willie, I'm working my way all the way up. But I really like to focus on the classic stuff like Dumbo, Steamboat Willie, all the early black and white Mickey Mouse cartoons, all the Fantasyland stuff. And I just turned my kids onto Fantasia last night, and I popped it in. I'm like, this movie's over 2 hours. There's no dialogue. Are they going to be into this? And at first they were like, is it just music? And I'm like, just watch. And by the end of it, they were like, don't fast forward. No, we want to see everything. And they made me put it in again today. So
that's great.
I think there's something really timeless about what Walt did, and I really want to explore not just Disneyland, but what Walt's vision of Disneyland was. And if you look at his concept art, it diverges a little bit from what the park turned into over time. But if you look at his original concept art and really explore what that world is, I think that there's something really magical and fun to be done there.
What was in there that you mean they diverged more into like attractions and rides and stuff, and it was more of an experience?
It was, it started off as just like a movie does. You start off with a few simple ideas that slowly grow into other things. And you develop technologies to help tell that story. So, like animatronics were developed for the park, for the Jungle Cruise, because they originally were talking about real animals. Or they, first there was Frontierland and Fantasyland and Tomorrowland and Adventureland, and the original artwork of what those things were meant to depict. Those were the basic brushstrokes of the park at first, and then it grew into the stuff that you have now, and now that John Lasseter is bringing his vision to it, the personality changes over time, and they're adding a Little Mermaid ride to California Adventure, and everything shifts and changes. But when Walt first set out to do it, there was something very nostalgic and forward-looking at the same time about Disneyland. It was, when you went down Main Street, it was the turn of the century. It was days gone by, and Tomorrowland was the future. And there's such a weird shared experience that any of us who's ever gone to Disneyland feels that I don't think has been really mined yet, because it's this collective subconscious that we have and these archetypes that are so strong that there's a fun way to present something that's, like a family entertainment, but still will take you through the experience that you had when because Snow White, that's a scary movie. I just watched it again. He went for it.
Yeah, it's scary. And like you saying, going to the park, I mean, people of our age who went when there wasn't that wasn't there before. And like you went to the Hall of Presidents and you had Lincoln there talking and moving. You're like transfixed as a child.
What about, I'll never forget the first time I saw the Carousel of Progress at Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, that blew me away. And I remember when I took my kids when they were younger, it was still in the, I don't even know if it's still in the park now, but when it was there, they were amazed by it. And you're right. There's a pang inside of you that's like, wow, it just connects with you in some weird way.
Yeah. And the song from that, was written by the Sherman brothers, and we had Dick Sherman do the Stark Expo theme for Iron Man 2.
Cool.
So, it's like been something I've always been drawn to, and now to actually say, hey, here's what characters do you want to use, and how do you not make it Space Jam, like feel like the Christmas parade with every character? How do you show restraint, and how do you make it tie into the emotional development of the characters? So it's a really exciting prospect, and I have to say that the success of the Iron Man films and the success of Elf and the things that I've done have put me in this wonderful position to have these opportunities to work with a lot of different people who see me as somebody who's going to treat the material with both, a certain amount of originality, but with respect. And fortunately for this moment, the audience is there for me. And I you got to seize on these opportunities. And it's just great to have a chance to really explore whatever's exciting to me right now. And I want to enjoy it while it lasts.
All right, guys. So, that was Jon Favreau talking about Magic Kingdom, which, of course, never happened. So now we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with the great Todd McFarlane.
Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Geek Time continues transmitting next with
Todd McFarlane.
If you're looking for the latest and greatest in tabletop miniatures, well, you better check out WizKids. They just sent me their newest offerings from their Star Trek line. This set is amazing. It's called Star Trek Into the Unknown, and they've got ships from both the Federation and Dominion War, which spans Deep Space Nine, Star Trek The Next Generation, and those were some of my favorite series growing up. Wow, I'm looking at the Enterprise right now, Enterprise D. They've painted all the little windows, the decals, it's just amazing. They also have a big set which contains Jem'Hadar's battle cruisers and fighters and Constellation-class warships on the Federation side. Just an amazing set. You can pick this up now wherever you can find tabletop items for sale. Those hobby shops and things like that. You won't find them at Targets. WizKids, also available on their website.
This is William Shatner, and you're listening to Geek Time, transmitting throughout the galaxy.
All right, welcome back to Geek Time, guys. That was William Shatner. And so our next guest, though, is just equally as amazing in my mind, because Todd McFarlane, what a class act this guy is. Like, I remember the first time we met him a few years ago, we were doing a booth tour, and I remember I was doing a live stream, and he just jumped into it, and he was like, yeah, listen to Chris, he knows what he's talking about. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this guy's nuts.
And we were so Star Trek too, because like you said, it's the first time we met him, and it's Todd McFarlane. We love his merchandise and the comics and everything, and it's so. I mean, we're not friends with the guy, but we see him every year, and he's always really good to us. And he's the same guy that we met then, and he's probably always going to be just that low key kind of guy.
Yeah, he's so personable, and when I met him, I got the impression of it's like that uncle, like your favorite uncle that just stops by and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?"
That's exactly what it is. And then he's like, hey, if he had tea, he would have offered us a glass of tea or something. He sits down and he's always happy. We were setting up, taking some photos and that, and I was taking the photo. He's like, oh, you got to get in the photo too. He wants to make sure everybody's happy, comfortable, and just a class act, great guy.
All right. So let me set up this interview for a little bit here. So the stuff that we talk about is very geeky. We talk about Batman, his love for Batman, things like that. But you're going to hear, there's a point in the interview where he's very humble and he starts talking about, like life's not all about materialism. It's my life is more like about this and that and balance in life. And it kind of threw me off because I had like all these questions that I wanted to ask him in my mind queued up. And when he went into this direction, I was like, wow, this is very cool. So I kind of let him just talk for the sake of talking because I didn't know where the conversation would go. I just let it kind of naturally drift back to the geeky stuff, which it did. But of course, it's kind of cool to see that side of Todd because you don't see it very often.
Yeah, and again, for somebody that is selling merchandise and wants you to, buy these material things, for him to be like, it's not all about you having the figures I put out there. There's much more to life than even the stuff I'm selling to you. You don't hear that from creators, from retailers, any of those people. They're like, oh, buy this, it's great. Buy this, it's great. He just totally went the opposite and just sat down and said, this is really like a philosopher, just wonderful advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So without further ado, here is the interview of the hour.
And now, Geek Time is proud to present the man who injected venom into Spider-Man, spawned Image Comics, and put the action back into action figures. The one, the only, Todd McFarlane.
All right, guys, I'm so excited to present to you this next guest. He's an icon, an legend, if I dare say. I'm sure you hear it a lot. Todd McFarlane.
Can I say, Chris, that nobody is bored of Todd more than me, right? I am over me. I know every story I'm about to tell you. I know every answer to every question before it comes out of my mouth. And unfortunately, I'm the only one that doesn't get to escape me. But I've learned to come to peace with me, and I actually enjoy my presence. So, anyways, let's just fire off here. Let's go.
All right, that's a great way of looking at things. So, I love every line that you put out, specifically the Batman 66.
Yeah, no, that's my guy too.
Is it?
Yeah,
I mean, tell.
I'm an older guy, right? And so to me, when I was a kid, I was born in 61, right? So I was in that sweet spot, right? When Batman first came out, right? I was like, oh my gosh, my whole world changed. And to this day, I still think to this day that magic of it coming on twice a week, and you had the cliffhanger, and then you had to then finish up the cliffhanger in the same week was magic. It was magic. The frustrating part, let me just tell you, again, I'm going to show my age here, so I'm going to show you my boomer to all you young people listening right now.
Certainly.
Is if you could watch it on Tuesday and then it continued on Thursday. That's how it worked.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Right. It was super awesome. But here's the downside, ladies and gentlemen. If you missed it, because Aunt Mabel was coming into town and you had to go pick her up at the airport or whatever it was, some usually stupid reason when you're young. There's never a good enough reason to miss the second half of the Batman. It was on a cycle that they would then run. They would do 26 shows and then 26 weeks, and then they would rerun them because there was no DVD, there was no stream, there was none of that. There wasn't, and so you had to wait 26 weeks. Now, again, I'm a patient man, but here's the torture. Every one of your playmates saw the conclusion, and when you went to recess that Thursday, they were like, "Did you see it?" And everyone that you missed was always the best one of the entire season, and you had to wait a half a year before the rerun would come, and you'd finally get it, and you go, "Oh man, that was good!" And by that point, all your friends had moved on to go, "Todd, we already saw that 6 months ago. What are you talking about? You're late to the party."
Oh, I had the same pains. Grew up in the 80s. Same thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Same thing. But I love that line. Did you ever get a chance to meet Adam West then?
I did. I met Adam a couple times, and then near the end of his life, we were on a panel. He piped in via a phone. And I'm trying to think what the topic of conversation was or whatever, because it wasn't necessarily about Batman specific. They just got a handful of people that were talking, I think, about entertainment and geekdom or whatever else. But and Adam, was on the other end. And it's always sort of fun to hear his voice because it's always that classic. It never left him.
Yeah,
right?
The slow drawl.
Yes, and so yes, when you get to sort of meet your boyhood idols, even when you get old, you still you still get a little giddy. But he was a good man. He was a good man.
Oh, good. Well, I could tell the love of the show showed through the figures that you put out, because not only did you put out, Batman, the Commissioner, or whatever, you got down to some crazy
we made some deep
tier
cuts.
characters. Clock King.
Yes.
Like how much of a joy was that to get to that tier of characters?
Well, look at so let's just talk about toy making fans and business as a whole, right? You try to have as much as possible your 365-day characters, right? And so we know that's like Batman, Robin, especially in this brand, right? And in DC as a whole, then it's like Superman, Batman, right? Those are the two names that my mom and dad know, like in a heartbeat. Everybody knows. So you have to figure out ways to make sure that you've got the A-listers. Then you go to the next tier, and those are usually like in Batman 66 would be like your Penguin, Joker, Robins, the ones that are like that next tier down that like are sitting there. But oddly, the ones that you can actually sell, not a tremendous amount. So I'm not saying they're on the same par as any of those characters, but you're going to get a sellout, is the C characters, right? Like whenever we do buckets, I call them the A and the B and the C. Oddly, at times, sometimes the one the hardest to sell is the B, because it's like in the middle and people have a budget and they don't know which one to make. The reason that the C usually sells out is because we usually make less of them, because we know we don't need a lot of Clock Kings, because there's not like we know that we're going geeky on that. So we will make a fraction of that we will to some of the other characters. But the moment that the fans know that information, right, that a stock boy opens up a case and goes to the internet and goes, hey, there's 12 in a case, but they only put like one Clock King every 2 cases. Like once that gets out, then everybody, even if you're not a Clock King fan,
you gotta have it.
I gotta get it because it's a good eBay item, right?
Yes,
it's a good eBay item. So the C ones that you think like, who's buying that, are never the issue. It's really these odd ones that are in the middle, the B guys.
Well, I was just amazed that you were able to get figures out there like that, like with the Eggman. Yeah. Because you probably had to chase down Vincent Price's estate for that, or
no,
how's it work?
I think the way it worked here was that they had a bunch. They either had a bunch of them already signed off, or they had gone back and circled back, and I'm talking like Warner Brothers, that had circled back and gotten it. I don't know how they got it, but I know when we said, hey, we're going to do the Batman 66, they were like, yeah, and the only holdback was you can do everybody except for Batgirl.
Oh.
And so what I think happened, and don't quote me, but what I think happened was that they never felt like they had the proper paperwork, and by the time they ever got to the proper paperwork, then Yvonne had sort of passed away, right? And so now they're like, I guess you could go to the estate and all that other stuff, but they were just going, that's the one you can't do the likeness of. You can do the costume.
Oh, I see.
Right, and you can do, she's red hair and whatever, but you can't make her face look like her face,
gotcha.
period. So, but everybody else, we have the proper paperwork.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice, too, that even with Catwoman, you were able to do the Eartha Kitt, as well as Julie Newmar.
Right.
Was it such a joy having these like in your own personal collection?
Yeah, and I think for those two, what was kind of fun was we put like this little sparkle in the plastic to give it the that look. Because I go, we can't just make it black, so we figured out a way. It's not perfect, but that glitter that they actually had in their costumes to just sort of go back and ruminate about that look that I remember when I was a kid. But yeah, I think Star Trek does this really easily, that you go, who's your captain? And you can tell like how old people are, right? Of like when they got introduced to a brand, right? Batman to some extent is like, who's your favorite Batman? And depending on who's your actor, right? You can tell that. You can tell a little bit by going, what's your favorite Batmobile too, right? And to me, again, the classic 66 Batmobile, there's only one, right? Everything else, whatever, right? But it's funny when you go to shows that actually have some of these cars, that the kids are like, the little young kids come up and the dads are like, oh my gosh, it's the Batmobile. And the kids like,
Yes.
the kids are like, what is that, Dad? Right? And it's like, what are you talking about, son? That's the Batmobile. I'm like, Dad, that's not the Batmobile. And it's like, so we all have what sort of tickles our fancy, and usually it's predicated on age. So
Gotcha.
I grew up in the '60s, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
That's my guy.
Well, I remember for a while there, the '66 Batman, the IP was untouchable. Like no one knew. Or I think Adam West was something with the rights. Like he wouldn't sign off on it. Once it was up for grabs, I bet you were just like, yes.
Well, it's not so much that it's Batman '66. It's like Batman the brand is what we're looking at as a whole, right? And so I go look at. There have been people who have been enjoying Batman theoretically since 1938 when Detective 27 comes out, right? So that name and that character has been a part of a lot of people for 70, 80 years. So we just pass through it at different times in our life depending when we're born, right? And so we go, hey, we have to be able to do like the Tim Burton Batman. We have to be able to do the animated look. We have to be able to do some of the comic book look. We have to be able to do the 60s look. And we have to be able to do the Pattinson Batman that just comes out. Why? Because those are new entry points for anybody along the way. You're asking me, Todd, as a man that's now over 60, that, I have a preference, but it doesn't mean that it's any better or any worse. It just means it brings out my childhood instincts when I see it. But depending on your age, there are other stuff that we do with Batman that I assume has the exact same reaction to people. It's just a 20 years later version, right? Because that was, oh man, when I saw Michael Keaton in Batman, that was the cool. Like there's people who talk about it with the same reverence that I do when I saw Adam West the first time. So
yeah. Well, I just love what you were able to do for not only the comic industry, but the action figure industry. Like, I remember I worked at Toys R Us when you were starting the starting lineup line with the football and
the
and all
McFarlane
that.
picks.
Yeah, and I tell you, we had regulars. We had regulars come in like crackheads, like, "Hey, did you get the new case in?" Like, they would have to rifle through it.
Yeah.
So it like I saw firsthand how big of an impact you had on the collector market, old and new.
Yeah, here's a couple things that happened. Like when we first started it, one of the goals was in the back of my mind, and I had no idea how to do toys. Let's just be realistic. And that first toy fair, I came with literally cardboard cutouts. I didn't even have a prototype.
Oh, really?
Wasn't even that smart to even know you had to have a prototype. And I still got orders, right? So all right, but that was because Spawn, the comic book, was the #1 selling book in the country at that point. So people were going, "Oh man, it outsells Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, all these big names that they knew." Then they go, "It must be good. We should probably get a little bit of this in our store." So it was just sort of a really basic reasoning and rationale as to why I caught a lucky break back then. But the goal was to say, A, I think artistically we can just do a better job than what's out in the marketplace, right? And then B, the one that I was hoping for, because I'm a fan and I'm a geek myself, if I can prove this to work and I can lay down a blueprint and succeed, and this is where you have to succeed. Like people, like sometimes will say to people, "Ah, man, you did that thing and you're getting to be a sellout and whatever else." Like I don't. My goal to succeed isn't because I need to be rich and famous. I've already had plenty of that. It's because you can't get to do the next piece of art unless the previous one worked.
Yeah.
You never walk into a room and say, "Hey, the last three things I did failed. Do you want to basically help invest in this next idea I have?" Nobody's going to join with you. You have to come with success. So that's why we have to drive it. But I knew that if done right, and if I could succeed, and then a couple other people followed, then 20 years later, there would be better toys across the marketplace, and it would probably even the Fortune 500 companies would have to upgrade their principles. And here we are, right, 30 years later, sitting in Toy Fair, and there are hundreds and hundreds, not thousands, of great looking figures.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Great looking figures that
raised the bar.
That when I went to my first Toy Fair, I can tell you there were maybe 2 figures I looked at that I went, "Oh man, I'm jealous. I wish I'd made those." And now There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that I'm jealous of. So it keeps me on my toes because I've got lots of competition that have taken from the plain book and doing a really good job at it. So I've got to stay on my A game. But it also said that there's a business to be had selling to people that are not 6 years old or moms, right? That there's an older audience that will buy products that are brands that they endorse. And so, yeah, I mean, early on, the vast majority of my sales were people 14 and older, right? So that's not your typical toy buyer. And now there are dozens, literally dozens and dozens of companies that cater to that same crowd in a really high quality way, right? With many, so cool, good on them, right?
Well, I remember when the Spawn #1 came out. It was a great looking cover. You used colors that I've never seen used
the
before.
comic book you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Spawn #1. It was what, 1991?
92.
And I like before that time, you'd pick up a comic book, the cover would be amazing. You'd open it up and then it would just like the dull paper, the dull colors and things like that. And I always had a question about that because I think around the same time, like Upper Deck, with the sports cards entered the scene. They really put Topps and was it Dunruss or
no Topps? They broke the monopoly. They broke the monopoly of Topps. But what your big question is overall was that if you put out a quality product, a certain portion of people, if not a lot of people, especially with the eye test, will notice it. Right?
Yeah,
like
because Upper Deck was using like high quality paper,
and gloss, and it was colored
yeah.
front and back. It wasn't just bland on the back. And I remember this because I bought cards. Topps was selling their packs for 35 cents, and then Upper Deck came out and it's like $1, and they got laughed at because they go, nobody's going to pay you $1. And the answer is, ladies and gentlemen, yes, you will if you give them $1's worth of value. This is the piece that people don't understand. Like, people will buy a Cadillac for $60,000 when there are cars that cost $20 because they actually think they're going to get $60,000 of value in their mind, right? We can have a debate whether that's true or not, but for them, they go, no, I think that's fair value for what I'm getting for that car, right? You're going to get what you pay for. So Upper Deck said, we're going to do a higher quality product, which they did, but we got to charge more for it. We'll just see whether people want a higher quality product. And guess what? People wanted the Cadillac of trading cards. And so for me, I was just trying to say early on, can I make the Cadillac of action figures? And people will come. And then, again, like I said, the competition comes, so you got to really sort of upgrade. But people understood, given that I didn't have any big brands, that Spawn was my only brand, that when they looked at the two toys side by side, that they just went, hey, how come he's giving us twice as much detail, twice as much paint, and twice as much plastic sometimes for the exact same price? You know what? The consumer understands value. And then years later, when we ended up getting licensed, then you just put a license on top of that mentality of give them the Cadillac product, sell it at Ford Motor prices, and people will buy it. And then if you put a brand on it, that's a winner almost every single time, right? So yes, people will pay you $1 for a pack of cards instead of 35 cents. You know why? Because people will give you $250 for a video console. My thing when I first started with the toys was I remember toys were $4.99, and I was selling mine at $5.99. I was $1 more.
Okay.
And they were like, again, the big boys were like, Todd, you can't sell it for $5.99. And the answer was yes, if I give them $5.99 value. Even better, what if I give them $6.99 worth of value and only price it at $5.99? That was the trick. And what they were thinking of was wrong. We can't sell our $4.99 toy at $5.99. No, because people will understand that you're gouging them, right? I was trying to give them value. The consumer knows when they're being fleeced and when there's value. And my whole thing was I gotta give quality and value, and it's still the core tenet of our company today.
Is there times where you just sit back, you're like, wow, I built all this?
No,
and you don't really.
No, I consider my life, and I think a lot of other people have had success and celebrities, whatever, will say that we ourselves are the last ones to analyze ourselves. I don't get up in the morning and go, man, Todd, you're so good. Did you ever, like, no.
Yeah.
Like everything, the best day I'm going to have is always either today or tomorrow. It's never yesterday, right? So everything you accomplish, everything that I've accomplished, I know intellectually if I stop and think about it. And I look at it in comparison, and when people sort of say nice things, I go, yeah, I guess there's some truth to that. But to me, I'm running a marathon, and I think I'm only at like mile 12 right now, right? And I guess I could pat myself on the back and go, man, Todd, you've run 12 miles, and aren't you good? Most people can't run 12 miles. There's still 14 more to go to complete a 26-mile marathon.
Yeah.
And so, like, everything is always in front, right? And it's running. What you do in the past is just to get to the end goal of what you're doing tomorrow. So no, my best idea, it should always, it can't have come out already. And we'll find out in hindsight that maybe it has, but to us, the creative people, which is why we're all neurotic, myself included, is that we chase the elusive perfection that we will never attain, although we think we will. Tomorrow's the day we're going to find the Holy Grail. We never do. And then we go to our graves knowing that we had 1,000 ideas in our head and we only got 10 of them out. And that's the frustrating, that's, I think, a little bit of the neuroses of going, we might go to our grave with our best ideas in our head still unlocked.
I suffer the same thing. It's like I have so many ideas, but not enough time to
right,
to
this is
put
where the
them out.
cloning machine comes in, right? So you're just going, so you just have to like pick a couple and be content with it and not drive. So I've told people before, if somebody ever comes up to you and said, hey, here's the trademark copyright for Superman, my recommendation, take it and run out the door as fast as you can before they change their mind. Do not ask about Superboy. Do not ask about Supergirl. And don't ask about Lex Luthor. Run with Superman, because you can then build an entire, literally, mythology around that one character if you've got a strong character as your backbone, right? Just go. Don't get greedy, and don't think you have to do everything. Just take one piece, go in a corner, and be the king or queen in that corner.
Wow, that's deep. I love your words of wisdom. You always
I
good
intentionally
stuff.
said I'm gonna make action figures for the most part, and I don't want to get distracted by the other aisles.
Do you ever have moments where you're like, how am I going to juggle all this stuff?
So the answer is yes, and I think every human being runs into that question for themselves. So I'm not unique on any fashion in that. Here's what I will tell you as I've gotten older, is hopefully age teaches you a couple lessons, right? And what most parents do, I don't think their children appreciate it, because I have 3 kids, and I didn't appreciate it when my parents were doing it. What most parents try to do is try and block you from potholes. That they just go, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Why? Because ultimately, without them saying it, I made the same mistake and it doesn't work. Or I know friends that made that mistake. It doesn't work. Parents are just saying, don't go down that street. We know it's a dead end, right? So life is the same way in terms of trying to find our balance, right? For me, here's what I found out as I got older. I'm a 5-ball juggler. And I tried to juggle 7, 8, 9 balls when I was younger. And here's the problem with being a juggler, and we're all jugglers. We all have a max. Even the people at Circus du Soleil, if you go to Vegas, they have a max. That guy who's juggling 25 things can't do 26. And what happens if you add one more item to your juggling, you know what happens, ladies and gentlemen? Everything falls to the floor.
Yeah.
And so I found the hard way that then your work suffers, a little bit of your health suffers, your personal relationships suffer, everything suffers, right? And so it was like, no, Todd, you will become a 5-ball juggler. If any opportunity comes along, you must either say no, or you must stop, put down one of your 5 balls that you're juggling, and then pick up that ball and make it the 5th ball. You can't go to 6. And so I've learned for myself personally that this is as much as I can deal with at any given time, and don't add any more. And if you do that, Todd, then you kind of are a little closer to the balance that you were really bad at those first 30 years, 35 years of your life.
Yeah,
No is an answer. No is an answer. And let me tell you, opportunity will continue to knock if you're good at what you do, right? People say yes all the time, especially when we're young, because we think that, like, if we don't, like, it will never come back. That opportunity will never come back. If you're good, right, people will find you, and the opportunities will continue to knock. As a matter of fact, you end up being hard to get, and then they want you even more. So, anyway.
I think what you're trying to get at is you have to have that balance in life, or it throws everything off.
All of us.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're doing. Like, again, I'm not any smarter or special than anybody else, right? I have the same flaws and the same inconsistencies and whatever else. I just have figured out for me personally. Look, when I go up on stage, let me just tell you this, that I talk about me. Here's why I do this. Here's why I did this. Here's why I did this. I don't tell anybody else rarely what to do. I went out on my own and I survived. And so the piece is that, like, oh, you don't have to necessarily go and do status quo or join the big sort of conglomerate way of doing stuff. You can be independent and survive, right, amongst the sharks that are trying to eat you at all times.
Oh, and I'm sure you've seen tons of...
I'm just talking about, I go up against Fortune 500 companies in both my occupations of comic books and toys, right? Like, I'm like, fine.
You even had to leave Marvel or
right. I go up against Marvel and DC on the comic books, and Hasbro's and Playmates and Toys R Us and everybody, and not Toys R Us, but Hasbro, Mattel, Playmates, all like the. But I never wanted to put them. The goal was never to try and injure them or kill them. That was never.
Right.
It was to look at the giants and go, where are they blind? What are they not doing? I'm not taking them down. What are you talking about? I got a pea shooter against their tank. So it's like, what are they not doing? And then in the toy industry, what they weren't doing, at least when I entered, was they weren't providing any product to anybody, for the most part, that was over the age of 14. Like, even like I remember specifically walking into a Toys R Us. They were the biggest toy guys at that point. And I stood there and I had a couple people with me and I go, what is in the store? The biggest store seller right now in this country. What is in the store if you're 13 or older? What is in the store for you? And I went, there's my opening. That they're not providing stuff to people over the age of 13, so I can make an action figure. They're making an action figure. I'm just not going to make it look like a cute furry thing. I'm going to make it look like Freddy Krueger. I can sell a toy to my mom as long as I make it look like Tom Jones or Engelbert Humperdinck. You just have to have the right content.
Yes.
So this was easy. I'm not trying to sell a cute fuzzy to a 27-year-old. I'm trying to meet them where they're at. They wanted Matrix, and they wanted Terminator, and they wanted Aliens, and they wanted Predator stuff. That was it. Fine. Nobody else is making it. The big boys don't want to sell it. I'll be more than happy to basically be the guy that steps up.
Now, as far as IPs go, do you have like everybody jumping out of the woodwork being like, hey, let's get McFarlane Toys to join forces with?
No, because I'd have every brand, and I don't. I wish. But
well, as far as like movie licenses and things go, do you have to like go through a big stack and be like, I don't like that, or?
Let me say that 30 years in now, making toys, that the asking for license is way easier than it used to be. As you can imagine, when you're new on the block and you haven't proven yourself, people are like, who are you? Mm-hmm. And then, which is why I had to have success with Spawn, so I could say, hey, I got Spawn that's doing these numbers. We got this distribution. I think you should probably give us a chance at doing something. And then each time you do it, then you show them that you can handle something a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, right? So, I mean, I said a long time ago, years ago, I can sell Star Wars, Spider-Man, and Batman. Just give me the license. Right? But I can't because I don't have it, right? And so, again, years later, we finally, after trying to get some of the big three, we ended up getting the DC Multiverse, and we showed that we were true to our word, that we could actually put it out there and do a meaningful business for them and keep the fans sort of happy and deliver stuff that they hadn't seen before. Again, it's easy to do, again, Superman, Batman Classic, right? Or whatever. Like, that's been done. You can go to eBay and type in those words and put toy next to those words, and you're going to get tons and tons, right? But not a lot of Lobo or Big Barda or Mr. Miracle or some of these.
Right.
And then a new character comes out in the comic book, you know, the Batman Who Laughs or something like that. Like, you go, oh, here's something that is essentially the rookie card of that figure. Nobody's ever made that figure, so this is the rookie card of it. Like, and so people and the fans react to it, knowing that that's the first time that character has ever been made and has been offered for sale. And again, sometimes not a big, as I said at the very beginning, not a big amount of sales, but the fans are very smart about what you present to them, both in quality, price, and the amount of it that has been out in the marketplace.
Gotcha. Well, I remember one of your first brands that you kind of branched out with was Austin Powers. I loved that line. You'd made Mini-Me, and
we put
Bat
sound
Bastard.
on it, which was fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, with the basses.
Yeah.
And like those to me were very nostalgic.
Yeah.
And was that like one of the first things that you branched out with?
Yeah. Well, it was, and here's the thing: it was a little risque for the Fortune 500 companies. So that put me in the perfect spot. Like, they're going, oh, who's willing to sort of take this chance? Oh, it's the guy who's now doing Movie Maniacs and the Twisted Land of Oz and all this other stuff. So he's doing a bunch of monster stuff, and he's got a character from the Pit of Hell, right, named Spawn. Okay, maybe he might be the guy that doesn't worry about that somebody says, you know, hey, you want to get Randy, right? So, okay, and so we did it, and we had success with it. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, they're giving me the high sign, but one last thing I have to ask is about the Spawn movie.
Okay.
You hit the amazing milestone of getting up to 300 issues with Spawn.
Yep.
Did you get the Guinness Book of World
Records?
Yeah, we
did. When we hit 301, that was the new record. And now we just sent issue 363 to the printer. So I've added another 62 to that number. So every issue technically is a new record, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's the status on the movie? Can you?
So we had the script, just going back and forth, trying to get a little bit of clarity on some of the stuff in the contracts that are existing, and then we'll get back to action and do what we all hope to happen. So I'm just sort of gonna just go silent here until I've got like real hard news. And I mean, everybody's still rowing in the direction of wanting to get it done. All the players are still involved, but until I can come out and say a deal is done, I'm hoping that the next big announcement I make is the deal's been done. The deal's done, which means we're going to production. That should be the next big piece of news. So.
Well, I can't wait for it to come out, because I remember the first one came out. You know, computer animation was just in its infancy, so I can't wait to see what you could do nowadays with the franchise.
Hopefully it'll be as cool as I have in my mind.
All right, Todd, thank you so much. I know we went over our time limit here, but thank you so much.
All right, Chris, appreciate you coming by today.
Alrighty.
All right.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Warning, Geek Time will return after these messages.
All right, all you toy collectors, Hasbro has a brand new Spider-Man themed collection going on. It's called Venom Versus, because I guess they're focusing on all things Venom in 2025. So I don't know if this is actually, if they're doing it with a tie-in with a video game or a cartoon or a property, but it seems like Venom is their main theme. They're bringing in a Venomized Peter Parker, Venomized Miles Morales. They're doing big figures, little figures, so anything that appeals to you. They even have a Venom mask. It's
all symbiote all the time.
You can get these at Targets, Walmart's, Amazon, so get your Venom versus Spider-Man figures today.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane, creator of Spawn, co-creator of Venom, and you're listening to Geek Time.
All right, guys, there's Todd bringing us back from break, and that's how much of a great guy he is, bringing us back.
Always willing to help out everything. He wants to share the wealth.
Absolutely. And now let's get to some geek news and notes. One of the first things I want to talk about that made major headlines, it seems, was the Powerpuff Girls trailer, the live-action one that they teased that they were doing a couple years ago in live action on, I don't know, one of those...
I think it was CW, I believe.
Yeah, CW. The cast looked horrible, by the way. That one guy from Scrubs was going to be the professor. It just sounded goofy. Well, I guess somebody leaked the trailer for this on the internet. And what's crazy is everybody's like, oh, it's so cringy and blah, blah, blah. And I had the opposite feeling. When I saw this trailer, I'm like, wait a minute. I saw it for what it was. They had so many clips in this thing that they pulled together. I believe there's an actual pilot to this episode that's out there. I think they took all the clips from this pilot episode, slammed them together into this, I don't know, demo reel just to sell to advertisers.
Kind of like a sizzle reel, yeah. And it looked.
Yeah, and I think it got out there. And of course, I don't know who was it, Warner Brothers? I don't think it's Warner. Yeah, I think it is Warner Brothers. They scrubbed the internet for the entire week. Like it'd pop up, it went down. But I gotta say, I want to see the pilot now. I want to see what they did with this pilot because it looks really goofy. But at the same time, I'm like, how bad was this? Because
it looks like one of those things where you kind of have to distance yourself from the cartoon and just like you said, take it for what it is, and it's probably going to be really fun and something that would give us like these great like comments that you could just sit there and like with Adam Sandler movies or something, you could just quotes that you could just say from this thing, and only a few people would get or something.
Yeah, and it was crazy too because Mojo Jojo was he wasn't a monkey in this thing. He was a real guy, and I guess he had a son, and at a certain point the son was kind of flirting with Blossom, so there was like a love interest there. And
the CW does, they like to always throw like little love stories into there, whether it's whatever property they bring.
Yeah, it looks goofy, but at the same time, I'm interested enough to see where they would have taken this. So
nice.
It's a trap. So anyway, also in the news, I guess DC Studios test screened Superman, and it's not looking good, guys. It's rumored that the people that were in the audience have described this movie as terrible, and now the studio executives are getting very, very nervous.
Yeah, this breaks my heart because I'm so looking forward to this. The trailer with Crypto, just seeing Crypto really got me excited.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart too because look, the last time we've gotten a really good Superman movie, let's face it, was Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a long time ago. I mean, even with Batman, we've gotten really great versions of Batman since then, but not Superman. Like every time they get a Superman movie, like something's off, it doesn't work well. And I heard somebody talk about this one time where they said Hollywood doing a Superman movie doesn't really work because they don't have that mentality of like coming from a small farm-like community. Like you have to get into that mindset and bring it out into the real world, and they just don't know how to do that.
It's that they can't relate to, for lack of a better term, like the common man or what everybody else is going through. And it's just hard to get that mom and pop values that they instilled into Kal-El.
Missed it by that much.
So Warner Brothers, boy, they're having disappointments all over the place because I guess the CEO over there is also furious that Joker, the second Joker movie that they did so bad at the box office because I guess the sequel only grossed $207 million worldwide. And I look at this movie and I was the whole time I'm thinking, at what point did you think this would be a good movie? Yes, you're bringing in Lady Gaga, but who in their right mind in the geekdom world wants to see that?
Yeah, the musical aspects of it. And I had read, of course, this was on the internet. I don't remember the source, but I had read that the creator did not want to do a sequel. The studio, because the first one was such a big hit that the studio was like, oh, we have to do a sequel. And he just kind of was like, all right, here's some kind of script and we'll just go with this. And that's what it is, because it was almost like a jab at Hollywood and the fact that they want to make movies, not art, is what he was saying.
You blew it!
Yeah, and I think the reason the first one did so well was COVID. You know, everybody wanted to see a movie at the time. Everybody was kind of jonesing for something to watch because there was nothing else to watch out there.
Yeah. And there were people that were angry too, and this kind of fed into that thing where, you know, you're angry, you kind of want to go against the system. There were those people on both sides, and that fed into that whole thing.
Right, and I hate to keep bagging on DC here, but it looks like they've got a bunch of movies that were also canceled. The Booster Gold movie is canceled, which I know you're still broken up over, Scotty.
Yeah, no, I'm a big DC guy, as you know. At some point, I'm just going to go to Marvel or to Image Comics or something, because that Booster Gold.
Booster Gold. I guess the Waller movie is canceled. The Batman reboot is canceled, and something called The Authority. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, again, as a big DC, I'm not sure about The Authority.
And I'm excited because I guess Star Wars, in the world of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down at the end of the year, and I got to say that is not soon enough. They can run her out tomorrow, and I'd be happy.
Yeah, a lot of people are the internet. That's one thing that the internet was all kind of agreeing on. That and the Snow White trailer, everybody's excited about. You know, everybody's negative about Snow White trailer. Everybody's very excited about this, and I'm hoping that Dave Filoni kind of takes over her spot, because he kind of sits at the feet of George Lucas, and he would be a good replacement.
All right, well, on that note, we're going to end Geek Time because time has got us, and I want send out a special thanks to Todd McFarlane, Orange Cassidy, Lawrence Cassidy. Thank you guys for being a part of Geek Time. And we'll be back next week bringing some more geeky guests. Like I said, we've got some great things in the can. You don't want to miss it.
Live long and prosper.
Geek Time.